back to Norfolk County, Massachusetts. It's day 25 of the prosecution case, and it's underway against defendant Karen Reed. When we took our break away, they're actually at lunch right now, but we were taken away to Young Slime Life there for a moment. But Joe Paul was on the stand at the time. He's this accident reconstructionist, a crash expert, and we know the crash in this case would have been the defendant's SUV against the former boyfriend, Mr. O'Keefe. Well, what did that mean? How did that work? Let's find out, because on the stand now, again, Joe Paul continues under direct examination. Let's go back in.
Before that, I know it was snowing and turned to a blizzard at the time.
Now, initially on February 1st, 2022, where did you go?
To Canton Police Department.
Now, sir, at some point in time on that date, did you also have occasion to go to a residence or a street called Fairview Road in the town of Canton?
I did.
And specifically, there was a address that you were directed to, is that correct?
That's correct.
And who, if anyone, did you go there with?
I believe it was one of the Canton Police officers, Lieutenant Paul Gallagher, I think his name was. I met him there.
And without anything specific as to what was told to you by Lieutenant Gallagher, what was sort of the purpose of having Lieutenant Gallagher there with you at that time?
He was going to show me where basically the evidence that they have at that point was.
Now, in addition to that, were you also able to, you're familiar with another specialized unit within the state police called the CERT team?
I am.
And at some points, did you have access to certain diagrams created by Lieutenant O'Hara within the CERT unit?
Yes, I was.
May I approach the I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 135 and 136. Actually, just you got it finished. I'm sorry, Mr. Jackson. That's okay. You recognize those, sir?
I do.
And, Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could just publish that briefly for the jury.
Okay.
Ms. Gilman, if I could actually have Exhibit 136. And Trooper Paul, do you recognize what's up on the screen as Exhibit 136?
I do.
This is the diagram that you were able to view from the created by Lieutenant O'Hara from the CERT team.
Yes, it was.
And what's contained, at least from this overhead shot, is that fair and accurate portrayal of the roadway or the conditions of the roadway, absent obviously weather at the time that you went out there on February 1st.
Correct.
So you can take that. Thank you. Forgive me, Your Honor, if I could just have 1 second.
Yep.
And do you recognize those, sir?
I do.
What do you recognize those to be?
They are pictures that were in my report. They're Google images of the roadway.
And one facing from the northbound direction, one facing from the southbound, is that correct?
That's correct.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
I'll introduce the minutes of the next meeting. Trooper, directing your attention to the screen, what you have before you is that, what's up on the screen, excuse me, is that what you have before you now marked as 582?
Yes, it is.
And if you could, there should be a laser pointer on the desk somewhere before you, sir. If you could, using that laser pointer directs the jury's attention to sort of what we're looking at in this particular photograph of the road.
All right. So this is Fairview Road. It's facing northbound. 34 Fairview Road would be on to the left. Nice area.
Now, with regard to the roadway, when you went there, what, if any, observations or what, if anything, did you note about sort of the roadway surface or markings on the roadway or the general overall condition of the road?
The roadway was, there's no significant difference, anything significant with the roadway.
As far as the roadway material, were you able to observe whether or not it was sort of asphalt or concrete or anything
Right.
else?
Yes, it was an asphalt roadway.
And as far as the markings within the roadway, what, if any, observations did you make of those?
There was double yellow stone line, white fog lines both sides of the edge of the road. Is that what we're going after, the roadways?
And then as far as adjacent to the roadway or adjacent to the fog line, what, if anything, did you observe there?
So as you look at the picture, at the left side, has asphalt curbings. These are about 5 inches tall, same on both sides, and there's a sidewalk along the right side of the roadway here.
And the side with the asphalt curbings, that's the same side that 34 Fairview is located on, is that correct?
Correct.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have the next slide. And to recall, if I could direct your attention to the next exhibit before you, I believe it's 583. And again, sir, what's up on the screen, is that what you have before you, it's 583?
Yes, it is.
And if you could, again, using the laser pointer, just briefly direct the jury's attention to what, if anything, you note as far as from this perspective.
Yeah, so this is the southbound. 34 Fairview would be on the right side here.
Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. Can I approach this to retrieve, Your Honor?
Yes.
Now, Trooper, with regard to the roadway as far as Fairview Road, what, if anything, did you note in regard to postings regarding the speed limit on that particular roadway?
Yes, the posting for a speed limit is 30 miles per hour. At this area, it's only posted 30 miles per hour for northbound operators, and I believe it was like 19 Fairview Road is posted in front of. For the southbound operators, it was not posted.
And so for a northbound operator, that would again be someone where the residents of 34 Fairview Road will be on the left-hand side of the road, is that correct?
That's correct.
And with regard to the width of the lanes, or what, if any, measurements did you take in regard to the lanes or the roadway itself?
Yeah, each travel lane was approximately 12 feet, and the overall width was approximately 27 feet.
Now, as far as measurements being conducted with regard to the scene, what, if anything, did you use or employ to make those measurements, or what, if any, devices?
Yes, I mapped the scene with a Leica GNSS GPS total station, and also used a drone.
That's a UAS, is that correct?
Correct.
The drone, I mean?
Yes.
And with regard to each of those, as far as the GPS mapping and the drone, have you received any sort of specialized training in regard to employment of each of those tools?
Yes, I have been certified to use the Leica, and I've also have a Part 107 license for the drone.
Now, as far as starting with the Leica or the GPS, if you could explain to the jury.
Okay, the drama is building because I'm still waiting for this guy to get to what we think will help the jury figure out what, if anything, happened between the SUV and Mr. O'Keefe. Katherine Lizardo is here, Dave Ehrenberg. Katherine, those photos we saw, I have some concern about those since it was nice and green and the trees were full of leaves, and we know this happened when there was 30 inches of snow on the ground. So, you know, what's the point? Why wouldn't we use photos that were more representative of the date and time this happened?
Because when he investigated it at that time, he based it on those photos, it seems like it. That's why they're presenting that picture, so that the jury knows what his basis for his expert testimony is. Let's remember that much snow that happened, it all melted down during the investigation. And one of the things that came up was, as the snow was melting, they were finding the broken red taillight of Karen Green around where John O'Keefe's body was seen. Now, the jury was able to view the scene earlier during the trial as well, so the jury likely saw a similar view of the scene like what we saw in the picture, because when they viewed it, it was not snowing as well. So this is what the jury understands and knows, and their point of view at this time.
Yeah, you know, Dave, 30 inches of snow. It was a record historic snowfall. And as it's melting, hey, well, look, we're finding more pieces of taillight. My concern is that, and I can't wait to see how this witness addresses it, but my concern is we've seen video after the fact where it looks like the light's pretty much intact. And now all of these pieces are bubbling to the surface or melting to the surface. I think it hurts the prosecution's case to have this conveniently located evidence. What do you think?
This is part of the botched investigation where they didn't see it all at first, and then what they saw, they collected using red Solo cups and Stop and Shop bags, and they had the leaf blower.
I mean, that's not a procedure? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, you do what you can do, I guess, at the time, but it doesn't look good, especially when you have these high-priced defense lawyers who've done an outstanding job building this conspiracy theory, which I do not buy, by the way.
Interesting. Okay.
No,
Why not?
yeah, I know I'll get hate mail for it because they have some real true believers, but yeah, you're telling me that these cops all have this cult of silence and they killed this guy, and what do? Instead of claiming self-defense, instead of throwing his body into the river, they put him out on the front lawn. It makes no sense. And then they delicately plant a hair on the car and then fiddle around with the tail light. No, I think that she accidentally backed into him. She was blasted drunk and then came back to the scene and found him. And so I think the case is overcharged. But no, what you're talking about is that you have a botched investigation, and that feeds into the conspiracy theory. And all these little pieces of evidence we're finding does not convince me otherwise.
Okay. I think I've got a new term here. I used to call this the Furman factor, when you have a witness like Proctor that you hate and it just taints everything else. Now you've been proctored. And I think the law enforcement in this case and prosecution perhaps has been proctored, because everything that comes in after what we heard from him, the text messages, the bias, it bleeds into all of that. And whether real or not, I think it's a factor for the jury. Okay, taking a break, coming back more of the Karen Read case when we do. Stay where you are.